This episode is brought to you by Riverside FM. Have you ever considered recording audio and video in high studio quality right from the convenience of your home? Your answer is Riverside FM. The link in this episode's show note allows you to record and edit with an AI assistant for free.
Pause. Take a break. Reflect on life. Your moment of greatness starts now.
In this episode, we will learn more about the importance of purpose and alignment. Helping us with this is the Purposeful Action Mentor. He's the Purposeful Action Mentor for Awakened Man Movement. Welcome to the show, Alain. How are you doing?
Doing great. That was perfect pronunciation. Thank you so much, Toby. And
Yes, I nailed it. So that's good. That's the only one time I'm going to pronounce it. So I won't mess up again.
outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence here today, and I'm looking forward to learning so much from you. Thank you so much for making out the time. And, while preparing for this conversation, I was reading about you a little bit, and I found out that part of your journey revealed, you having to, go through divorce and go through bankruptcy, almost losing your second marriage. But before that, you are on a very wonderful path, winning Olympic medals as a chef and doing other wonderful things also. So I would just like to know, I would just like to learn from your story, from your experience. Like, can you share with us what happened and how were you able to then transform your life to how it is right now today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll start with, I think all of us, and when we were little, we all have dreams of being something. Some of us have dreams maybe being an astronaut or, maybe being a firefighter or policeman or something. But I always dreamed about wanting to be a chef. And it's because the TV shows in the afternoon in Canada here that we would watch would be things like the Galloping Gourmet, like cooking shows. And it really intrigued me. And so when I graduated high school, I went into culinary training. And I won't go through the whole years of all that, but through my journey, I was just fortunate enough because I believed I was living on purpose in that particular aspect of my life to have the right people show up for me. And so I ultimately apprenticed underneath a chef that was competing in these Olympics, these culinary Olympics. And I had never heard of that before. And you have to remember, this is in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s when I was doing it. And so there's no food TV network, there's no Bobby Flay, Iron Chef. This is stuff that was happening on a regular basis. And so I got to apprentice with him. And after the 88 Olympics, then I had an opportunity to be on the team for the 92 Olympics. And so it was so exciting for me to really be surrounded by a bunch of people that I would still consider to be mentors for me, and to be able to spend time and learning from them, really getting an opportunity to master and hone my skill, my craft, and as a chef and as a culinarian. And while that professional life was outstanding, and won a couple of silver medals there with the team, and that was outstanding. But what was happening is that because so much purpose and so much focus was in one aspect of my life, what it ended up by doing was costing me the rest of my life. And I think
Mm,
that's a pretty common. I've read lots of autobiographies, and if you look at them, there is a bit of a common theme there of, we get focused as men. I just spend time in the men's sphere, helping them to really stay in alignment of what's truly important for them. And it's easy for us to get swayed thinking that our purpose in life is to provide for our family. And so we put all this time and energy in it. And that's a great thing, but to what cost? And so what cost for me was ended up by ultimately having me to get divorced. My high school sweetheart and I ended up by, we just couldn't deal with all of the stuff that was coming to us. And because I
mm,
hadn't spent any time to be consciously involved and engaged in my marriage. And so when that occurred, I lost everything. As you mentioned, I ended up by claiming bankruptcy. Probably went through about a year or more of depression. I didn't think of it then, but as I reflect back now on what was happening, I can see the void in my thinking and how out of alignment I was, because what I truly felt I valued and what I said I valued and what my actions were showing were two different things. And so it was a struggle to come back from that. And some
mm.
of that work was really That was in my early 30s. And so that's when I actually picked up a book for the first time since high school and started reading. And, I was a big fan, still am a big fan of Jack Canfield. And, I picked up his tape series from Nightingale Conant of Self Esteem and Peak Performance. And I can tell you, I wore that series out. At one point, I think I had the entire seminar memorized word for word because it was so impactful for me because I could recognize that truly what was happening in my life is that I had such low self esteem about who I was as an individual that it ended up by costing me so much more. And so we tend to, as guys, we can be like, we can use this. I don't know if we'll get into the talking about the imposter syndrome, but it's one of those things where we just overcompensate because
Yeah.
we're afraid to deal with some of our demons and some of the things that came up. But that was really the catalyst, and it's really started my journey on self development. But I'll pause there, and maybe there's some things you want to talk about, and we can go in lots of directions from there.
Yes, I mean, like I'm already seeing a lot of directions we could go from there. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I would just like to learn already, like when you experience that, you went through this very dark phase of your life. How are you then able to pick up yourself and find your realignment to your core values, to your real mission on earth? How are you able to bounce back again?
Yeah, that's a great question, Toby. I think the thing for me, it was just really really looking at what I said that I valued and what my actions were. And so, there's lots of different ways to do a value alignment process. And so, one of the things that I continue to use and I teach my men that I work with is really just I have a list of about 100 different adjectives. They're really ways to express things that you value. And when I went through this exercise of, writing down, jotting these things in groups and like 5 columns, and then distilling these columns down into 5 keywords, and ultimately writing a bit of a purpose statement from that. And then when I did that work and I recognized that, okay, now that's half the equation. The other half is how am I living to this? How am I actually showing up? And the scary thing is that I wasn't hardly at all. And so when you look at that, there's two different ways that things you can do. You can either, rewrite that and say what you're actually living today. But is that the best way that I want to move forward? Do I want to continue to make the same mistakes, show up the same way? Or am I truly wanting to live to this value statement that I just prepared? So the decision I made was to live by that value statement. And so that meant looking at what my aspirations were and what my intentions are. And we had our men's night last night, and we were talking about is this year we're focusing on everyone having their own hero's journey. And I talked about the difference between setting goals and setting intentions. And while we're very driven to set goals, goals are always future oriented. There's something that's happening out there. But if we focus on the intention aspect of that goal, intention is a present thought. So how am I intending to show up today? What are the things that I can make note of how I want to show up? Do I want to show up, to be more aware of of my interactions with people? How is my interactions affecting others? Is my message being clear? Do I truly understand what it is that I'm saying when I'm speaking to people? And so when I started to do that work, then things started to come more into alignment, more into living that value statement that I write. And the interesting thing about it is that I ask guys to do this on a regular basis to look at those value statements. We do it annually. And the reason
Mm.
for that is that guess what? I'm not the same person that I
What?
was in January of 2023 or 2022 or 2021. We grow and we evolve. And so it's opportunity for us to look at and what do we truly value today? And does that statement still resonate or does it need some refinement? And I find that there's always some refinement. There's refinement in our growth journey. As long as we stay open to that, we have an opportunity to continue to evolve and change.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. Something you said earlier, like during your men's meeting or nights, you talked about, having goals and having intentions, or setting goals and setting intentions. I would just like to know which one is important, or which one is more important, or can we have, are both of them equally important, or how do we prioritize them?
It's a great question. You know, I'll look at it. I look at it this way: the goal is important, and it has the initial importance to it. But the
Mm,
true gold in that goal is in the journey. And I'm sure you've heard that before in other ways. But what does that mean? And so the important piece is, how am I showing up every day? So I think back to a book we did a couple of years back called Habits, Atomic Habits, and he talked about in there about doing 1% improvement per day, and really making the smallest, taking your goal and making the smallest piece of change. So for example, lots of us will have, beginning of the year, we're going to have this idea. We want to focus on health. We want to eat better. We want to go to the gym. And so we're going to write a goal and say, I want to lose 30 pounds. That's a long goal. But what could I do today? Well, I'm going to go to the gym for 3 days a week. Okay, what can be smaller than that? Well, I'm going to do that for 60 minutes. What can I do smaller than that? And ultimately, you get down to the point of, you know what? I'm going to set my clothes up in a spot where I get changed first thing in the morning to start to create the habit of taking that first step. So it's not about being on the treadmill for 60 minutes. It's about what's that very first step. Maybe it's setting an alarm on your watch or whatever it is that you feel you need to do, but it's to break it down and being intentional about it. And so when we start to put intention in place, then we start to build momentum. And so I think
mm.
while the goal holds weight, the true value in that whole process is the intention that we set to it, day by day, moment by moment.
Yeah, setting those intentions are very important. Yeah, positive intentions. And then when you were talking about your story earlier, you made mention of imposter syndrome also. So I'd like us to go back to your story and then talk about your experience with imposter syndrome, and how you were able to then, deal with it. And have you been able to overcome it right now, or is it something you are still working on?
Yeah, great question. I think imposter syndrome is something that we continually work on. Different parts in our life, different times in our life, we're able to overcome the imposter syndrome. So first, let me describe what that looks like. Syndrome is that opportunity where you continually tell yourself you're not good enough, that
Mm,
you don't have the skills, you haven't learned enough. And so what ends up by happening is you're always comparing yourself to something that is always greater than you. Very rare are you at the same level or more than. Usually it's less than. And so then how does it start to show up in your life? Well, it's going to show up in your life as you start to really having an inability to be truthful about how you are assessing yourself and how you're showing up. So just because, we'll go back and use the working out, just because you may have missed a day going to the gym or doing your workout, does that mean that you're a failure? I would suggest not. I suggest that
mm,
it's an opportunity to recalibrate and get back and just do it. I always use the line, it's one in a row. It's one in a row. Then it's two in
mm.
a row. Then it's three in a row. And if I have to start at one in a row, kind of like lots of people that are starting to do meditation class, learning how to meditate, just, counting your breaths to 10. And how long does it take you to actually get to 10? because we tend to be very distracted. So it's really about how we're
mm,
assessing ourselves. And then
mm,
how that assessment is happening for in that imposter syndrome will also be how we really speak to ourselves mentally. And if we listened and thought about that chatter, you probably wouldn't speak to your best friend that way, but we'll do that to ourselves. And so that's the internal stuff that's going on. Externally, what is it looking like? It looks like you're overachieving.
mm.
That's that person that, works countless hours, really mission driven. Now it could be mission driven for positive reasons, but sometimes that's also driven because of there's this idea that they're just not good enough. And so we
Mm.
get into this overachiever mode, right? Because we have lots of
Yeah.
self-doubt. And then
Mhm.
ultimately what ends up by happening, if you haven't been able to overcome the imposter syndrome, you start to self-sabotage. You start to make mistakes that you know that if you take this step, it's probably not going to end well. And that's how lots of relationships end up by being broken. Is that we end up by thinking that we get caught in this imposter syndrome idea, and then it ends up by getting done, ending. And so, how do you overcome that? One of the things that I do, and I continue to do today is whenever I feel lots of self doubt. Believe it or not, even though I have a podcast, there's many times I question, geez, is anybody going to listen to this episode? I'm doing this
Mm.
work. Is it really going to be good enough? And then I just make a list, start making lists of this is my 120th episode. I've been, my downloads are growing. I'm getting, commentary. So there's positive things happening. I'm not
Mm.
comparing myself to Joe Rogan. To me, I'm just, was I a little bit better than yesterday? A little bit better than my last episode. And then we can talk
Yeah.
about, the other part is, and this is why I think men's work is so important, is just talking about the things that are affecting us. Because once what
Mm.
we realize is that very rare are we alone on an island dealing with something, that there are
Mm.
others who have gone through something that's very similar. At least the emotions are very similar. We can help each other grow through that. And so I think the key ultimately of it is you really need to accept the part that we play in this play of life, and that we play a very successful part because we're here
Mm.
because of those thoughts and words and actions that we've taken. And it's been purposeful, whether we've been consciously aware of it or not. And now is an
Yeah.
opportunity, if you're not happy with where things are at, to be able to change that direction by just being more conscious and always
Mm.
being aware of when the imposter syndrome is showing up, and that you can do battle with it, tame that monster.
Yes. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah. Always be be conscious and be aware of when it pops up. Then, yeah, taking some necessary steps to deal with it. That's so great. And you made mention of men's work, and you have this body or this movement, the awakened man movement. Um, what's the importance of having this kind of movement? What's the importance of having a group of men together that work together and help each other grow?
Yeah, the purpose for today has never been a better day than to do men's work. Men's work's not new; it has been happening for a long time, and a lot of the work that I've come across is really back into the '80s and '90s, and now it's
Mm.
picking up even more steam. And the reason why I believe it's so important that is that a lot of us as men are confused about what it means to be masculine, what it means to be able to have healthy masculine energy, and yet still understanding that we have the feminine part of us that still exists. And that doesn't mean it has to cause confusion. It's about how we're showing up. How are we showing up as being as nurturers as we can be, as fathers and husbands and leaders? And that's where I think the challenge for today is that there isn't a place for men to go. And I can tell you how my group started is that when I just about lost my second marriage, there was nowhere for me to go. I spoke to a couple of really close friends, and they're dear friends of mine, but they didn't have the skills or the tools of how to support me through that, and how to, because we made a decision, my wife and I made a decision that we were going to work on this. She actually made the decision to give me the time to be able to do that work and to actually show that I was serious about changing about who I am. And
Mm.
because of that, and then I was able to really start to build some momentum. And so that when I recognized there wasn't a place for me to go to get help and to talk about that and to have a place to share. It's not that these don't exist, but you got to bear in mind who in society generally gets together in a group to talk about stuff. Women tend to do that.
Mm.
As men,
Mm.
we'd much rather be the lone wolf and take it all on our own. And we think that's a sign of masculinity and a sign of strength. And while that may be for a small period of time, the truth of the matter is that if you really want to go somewhere fast, then do it alone. But if you want to go far, you need to bring others along with you. And so the second incident that happened within about a 2 year span was my father-in-law had passed away. And he was, I would say, was my best friend. We hung out, we did lots of stuff together. He's a big New York Yankees fan. I'm a big Montreal Canadiens hockey fan. And we would, always kibitz about, who had the biggest dynasty. And we were just really close friends. And so when he passed away, and I was asked to go look for him and found him, my heart just broke. And again, I was in this place of grief, this place of mourning, and there wasn't anywhere for me to go to that I felt comfortable and safe to be able to express and share what I needed to. And so those two incidents really showed me that there's an opportunity here. And where I live here in central Canada, there isn't anything. And so I decided to create a men's group to give the opportunity for men to have a safe space to come in where they're free of shame and blame. And
Mm,
while I used to say also free of judgment, I've tweaked that a little bit, free of harsh judgment, but free of compassionate accountability. And so
mm,
it's about how we approach things in life and how we can come in. And that's where our true masculine strength is that we can take that initiative that we have and mix it with some compassion in it and truly lift our brothers up together. So we have an opportunity to grow as a group versus trying to do this all by ourselves.
yeah, that's so great. I love the key word you mentioned, accountability. It's very important for us to be accountable and have people that could give us feedback and help us on our journey. Yeah, because like you said already, it's not something you can do alone. If you want to go far, you have to have people around you to help you go far. Yeah. So for people out there who are listening, I'm going to put the link to your website in the show notes of this episode so that you could visit your website, read more about this movement, and also link to your podcast so people could also listen to awesome podcast episodes that you release to the world also. Yeah, that's great. So I would like to ask a question, and that's I'd like to know how we can know when we have found our life purpose. Like, is there something that rings a bell in your head when you found that thing that you're meant to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the short answer to that is, you're living or close to living your purpose
Mm,
when when it's not, what you're doing is not draining your energy, it's actually increasing it. And so what does
mm,
that look like? I think what it really looks like is really being in tune with the things that you're passionate about. And I would suggest that that's a great way to start in looking at finding a life purpose. What are the things that light you up? What gets you out of bed in the morning? And I don't
mm,
mean about, oh, it's vacation next week, I'm all excited, I get to go on a 2 week vacation. I'm talking about in any given moment when that thought comes to your mind, you are just so jazzed. And so one of the things that I take guys through is actually a process to help them discover what that looks like. And part of that process includes doing this values assessment. And we go a little bit deeper. We go into a little bit of archetypical work, but we spend some time looking at their values are, how they're showing up, just as I had talked about earlier. Then we look at the limiting beliefs that we have about different aspects in our life. I call it an integrity challenge. So I get them to assess where they are in different areas: financial, emotional, physical, spiritual, professional, and relationship. And then once they really look at that, we can see what kind of self-talk and how are they self-sabotaging. And once you
mm,
start to understand that piece of it, then you can start to put together the pieces together of what do you need to do now as you understand what you value, how you've been speaking, where are those limiting beliefs, the sabotage that's occurring. And now you can start to look at crafting a mission statement, this mission, this idea of purpose. And the
mm,
idea is to create something that is what you're aspiring to become. So I always say men are ready for change when we're ready to take a responsibility for where we are in life. As I said earlier, everything that we have around us, good, bad, or indifferent, is based on the thoughts and actions and words that we've uttered.
mm,
And so if we want to change that piece, then we need to take responsibility for that and own every aspect of that because it was us who created it. Secondly, once you've owned where you are, then you need to own who I am. I was that person that created that. Can't blame it on my spouse, although that used to do that. I can't blame it on other pieces of life, economy, other things. While they may have an impact, I always have a choice in how that show up. If there's things that are outside forces, but it still comes down to choice. And so ultimately what I'm getting them to focus on is what do you aspire to become? So your purpose statement isn't about a destination. Like my purpose is it's not like a business goal where you're looking at that I'm going to grow my business by X percent and that purpose statement, living your purpose is about how you're showing up every day. And what is the kind of man it's going to take for you to aspire to become the things that you want to attain in all these different aspects of life. And so after they've crafted their mission statement, then I ask them to also complete this sentence. I'm the kind of man who, then what are those actions? What are those intentions going to be
Mm.
for you to live with purpose, live with intent? Because I think purpose is more than about one thing. It's really about complete package of the whole man aspect. How am I showing up as a husband, as a father, as a leader, as a community leader? And when we start to look at those and how we show up, the things that we dream about having, the goals, the stuff that the outside would say that you're a success,
Mm.
those will come naturally. But what is harder to see and harder to build is the person that we aspire to become because we have to continually work on the sabotage and the limiting beliefs that we'll have about it. But I guarantee you, as you do that work, you'll find those
Mm.
become far less impactful because you've
Mm.
developed the muscle and the skill to be able to deal with it.
Yeah. Yes. Once again, you mentioned, setting those goals and also setting your intentions. Like, okay, these are my goals and these are my intentions. And that way, one is able to live that purposeful life, because it's not just about achieving one thing. It's about the whole package for a man, for a woman, whosoever is setting a purpose. Like, it's a whole package of being a whole being, like a better person or getting to a different level or a higher level in life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And I came across this word called purposeful action. Is that something we've already talked about, or is there a meaning to purposeful action?
Yeah, purposeful action was really about again setting that intention. So when I think about purposeful action, what am I when I get up in the morning and setting my day out? What intention do I have set for the day? And then what are the actions that will follow to achieve that? And so there's some purpose behind that. So for me, purposeful action and intention are very close and very similar. It's really about trying to be as present as I can and not looking at the future about either how close or how far away a
Mm.
goal I may have. And so it's about really being, what can I do today? Because I can only control what's happening in this moment. I can pay attention to the thoughts that I'm having. I may not be able to control all of them, but I can pay
Yeah.
attention to the thoughts. And what I can control is decide how I'm going to react to these things. How do
Mm.
I want to, what is that next step? And so
Mm.
it challenges us to be more present versus just showing up in life and whatever happens and being more reactive. I prefer to live life in proactive, live on my toes versus living in on my heel.
Mm. Live on your toes rather than living on your heels. Yes. Yes. Great. So, from your awakened man movement and from your experience with working with other people as a coach, as a mentor, what would you say are the things that men lack?
Yeah, that's a great question. I find that we lack four things in life. And this is true for men. I do lots of men's work, but I'm sure it's true for anyone. One of the first things that we lack is we lack clarity. We lack clarity and really understanding of who we are as men. And I talked about asking people to complete the line. I'm the kind of man who. And so when we can become clear about who we are and what we are aspiring to become, we can start to set the foundation and build the foundation for a much better life. But that's only the first piece that we lack. The next thing that we lack is a commitment to that clarity, and we lack commitment because it's something about wanting to be able to understand why we're doing it. And so, setting a goal to lose a bunch of weight as a New Year's Eve resolution is a great goal. but why? Have you had a recent diagnosis from your doctor that wasn't great? That could be a big enough why for you to do that.
Mm,
Do you have grandchildren? I'm in my mid-50s, so I just so blessed to start having grandchildren around. Do I have the energy to be able to, be on the ground and rolling around on the grass and playing with them? Or is grandpa just tired and worn out? So we need to have a bigger commitment to our why, to that, and with that clarity and commitment, we can start to take purposeful action. So we're still missing a couple things though. So the other thing that we need to that we definitely that we lack is a compass. So what I mean by that, a compass is all about that true north star, that ultimate person, that idea of who we wish to become. And so when we have that, it's really about having a compelling vision. Again, it comes all wrapped. You can see a lot of this stuff is wrapped all around purpose, really being that person that you're aspiring to become, and living and leaning into it as much as we can. And
mm,
the last thing is, as I talked about earlier today, is about we need community. And so when we lack community, then we can get lost in our own thoughts. And we can easily get lost into it and talk ourselves out of taking action, out of doing something. But when you
mm,
come in a committed in a community and you have opportunity to do something together with brothers in arms, then we have an opportunity to truly grow. And so when we can overcome these four key areas, these four things that we lack, then life opens up to us to the things that we've never even dreamt about would be possible.
mm. Yes, I believe so too. Especially the part of the community, and also having that, not like, having a goal in mind or a destination. Where this we say the journey is the destination, but always having like the next destination in mind, the next point to get to in mind. Yeah, I think that's very important. And that helps us even whenever we are struggling with anything in life, we'll be able to have the strength, the courage to overcome whatever challenges we have, because we know where we are going to and what we want to achieve.
Yes.
Yeah, I've learned so much from you already. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I appreciate this. I would just like us to know how we could connect with you and work with you. I'm sure that I mean, I, for example, have a lot of questions to ask, but I would like us to wrap up already.
Sure.
But in case there are other people out there who would like to connect with you, work with you, maybe follow up on your work, what's the best way to do all of this?
Yeah, the best way to do that is go to my website, theawakenedman.net. When you go to the website, what's going to happen is you're going to have a little pop-up screen. And on that pop-up screen is an opportunity for you to download a free tool. I call it Setting the Compass. And the idea of setting the compass is really to look back and reflect on what your last 12 months looked like. And then and creating a headline of how would you describe it? If this was in the paper, what would the headline say about how the last 12 months showed up for you? And then I
Mm,
want them to do the similar exercise about the next 12 months. So inspire yourself about how do you want to show up? How will you serve the world? How will you be in the new year for the next 12 months? And you then write a headline about that. Again, it's that, aspiring to become peace. So that's a free
mm.
tool for anyone. Just go in. All you need is a first name and an email address. Have a look at that. It'll be a great tool for you. Opportunity to start the ball rolling. And if you want to learn more, there's also opportunity within that document to be able to book a clarity call with me, and we can talk about what your life's looking like.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It was wonderful speaking with you. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Toby. Really enjoyed our conversation today.
Same here. Wow, you made it to the very end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I'm grateful for your time, your love, and your contributions. Subscribe, like, review, and share this podcast. God bless you. Bye. Bye.